Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of A Mic on the Podium with me, Michael Seal. Before this week's interview, I'd like to thank my latest subscriber on Patreon, Angus, for his support and all of my Patreon subscribers. Subscribing is now even easier, with the option of paying a one-off annual fee, which rewards you with a 10% discount over the year. Details of how to join the Supporters Club and gain access to even more content about the world of conductors and conducting are in the show notes attached to this episode. Today, I conduct a conversation with a conductor who has held positions in Brazil, the United Kingdom and her native Italy. She was the Tachy Concordia Fellow from 2015 to 2017, and in 2020 she was appointed the Music Director of the Richmond Symphony in the United States. It's a great pleasure to welcome Valentina Peleggi. Valentina, it's lovely to meet you, see you, speak with you today. How are you?
Hi, Mike. Hi, everybody. Well, I'm fabulous. Thank you.
Good. And you're at home in Florence. We were just chatting before I pressed record. What a lovely place to call home.
Yes, I'm in Florence, Italy, and it doesn't look like Florence at this very moment, but I think it's Florence.
Yeah, it's just missing hordes and hordes of tourists. I mean, they're there every minute of most days of the year, aren't they?
Right, that's true. But the other day I discovered that I'm still in Florence when I'm at the fourth floor, and then it's so quiet here because we have all these lockdowns. And finally, I heard some trumpet and violin playing, and so wait, what is it? So I opened the windows, and there were people that just playing and singing in the streets. And okay, I'm home.
So life is returning slowly to some sort of normality. So you were born in Florence. With most conductors, I normally start by looking up their Wikipedia page, and I don't think you have one, which if you do, it's in Italian. So I was scrabbling around trying to find anything about you, and so far I shall start by asking, you were born in Florence and you played the piano, but could you take us a little bit further on through the journey? How did music start, and how did it come to become your life?
Yeah, so I started music probably as all the other kids when I was a kid, but within one of the many things that I was doing, like, I don't know, like swimming or playing football, or it was just one of the activities. And I started actually playing violin, and then I switched to piano, and then switched back to violin. But actually, what really made the difference to me, that I really started loving music, was when I joined the first time the children chorus here in the city of Florence, in the Teatro Comunale. And that was actually also because playing the piano when you're still a kid, it's kind of a lonely instrument, the piano, because then you start chamber music when you're a bit, later. But at the beginning, you're on your own. And I was like, But then, singing the children choir, I found first the social aspect, being surrounded by other people that sing with you. And then I remember I was 13 when for the first time, I walked on stage. It was a big stage for our Carmina Burana first rehearsal. And it was just absolute. I was like, I don't know, I was shaking. It was just so marvelous. I was on stage. We rehearsed, with the piano, and I thought I knew the part. And then I found, myself with 200 voices behind me of the symphonic covers, and then a carpet of strings and orchestra in front of me. And when they all started, bam! Oh, I thought it was like, that was a physical impact of the sound that I wasn't prepared of. And then I saw a man in front of me waving his stick and smiling, having the best time of his life. And it was Subin Mehta. It was like, wow. Okay, this is cool stuff. And that's how I basically got into just the sound, and that started my passion for music. So I kept playing the piano, and at the same time I also was curious with other instruments. I played a bit of violin and then flute and the clarinet. I was hungry to experience this kind of different sounds.
Isn't it amazing that very first time, if it's as momentous as that? My daughter, who's now 21, She's studying biochemistry and biomedicine, but she sang in Carmina Burana, and I was conducting. And the wide-eyed looks on the kids' faces when it came to them being their turn, and to see an orchestra in front of them and a big chorus. I mean, obviously for some kids that's too frightening, and it puts them off. But for others, it is the key to a door which unlocks music to them, and performing. And, from that day on, she went on to play percussion, sing solo, do all sorts of music making, and loves music to this day. It probably isn't going to be her career, but that whole world is opened up, isn't it?
It's so true. It's so true. It is a very, I don't know. I think when we are kids, we are hungry in these kind of experiences, experiencing things firsthand. And the experience, the power of sound, it's just something really unique. And apart from sound, you experience the connection at the same time, right? So music connects, and it's just a small part, and you sing, but you have the impression that it's important. Everyone is important, and that's fantastic. The idea that you are there bringing your own little candle, and together you're creating and building up something more bigger than you, taking part of something bigger. I think it's really touching.
So your first experience of a conductor was Zubin Mehta. I mean, that's fairly amazing. But going forwards on from there, how did music stay in your life? And then I'm assuming you went on to various music academies or schools of music in Italy and studied. Was it still just piano, or were you already starting to wave your arms around?
I actually started conducting with Piero Bellugi, who was a fantastic conductor. If you haven't ever heard of him, or just have a look. Piero Bellugi is just fantastic, and he taught me for the first time the elegance, the concept of just making music, and with the orchestra, with the same approach of a chamber music group. And that was really fascinating. So, but actually, starting then, went into conducting studies here in Florence, and then in Rome at the Conservatory Santa Cecilia. And then, of course, I did all I could here in Italy. So I did also Accademia Chigiana for several years. So it was a wonderful experience. But I wanted more. There is a moment where you really need to open up your experiences and your eyes. So I applied for the Royal Academy of Music in London. So I entered, got a scholarship. So I spent 3 years there, and it's always, I found it very, very tricky, the passage between the school and the profession. It's a very delicate moment. I think for everyone, but conducting also it's very tricky. Also because I don't think there is one way to actually enter the profession. It's just, you have to find your own. You have to kind of, building up one. And for me, it happened because the last while I was actually, I'm one of these personalities that, I need to do more things. And then, if there's one thing, I just, my brain is just very flexible. So, for example, I'm graduating in comparative literatures. So I need to, the arts and poetry and music, they all connect. They are all different, different sides of the same coin, right? Which is art. So at the same time that I was actually doing the conservatory, I was at the same time doing the university, and then I was a principal conductor and music director of the university chorus in Florence. And then I found my own orchestra here in Florence, Ensemble Italiano. And then I was traveling madly at the same time to London. So I was like, come and go. And at the same time, I found an orchestra also in London. So I was like, okay, we need to take a decision. So the last semester of my studies in London, there came up this possibility to actually represent the academy in an international festival in Brazil. in conducting. So I was chosen to represent the academy, and I was asked, so would you like to go for 3 weeks in Brazil in the summer? So wait, let me think a moment. I think yes. After 3 years in London, kind of rainy, I think I would go to the sunny Brazil.
Definitely.
And I didn't know anything about the festival. I just was ready for a holiday, and the best holiday of my life. But actually, it turned out that it was the turning point of the start of my career.
Now, what's interesting about this festival is you're right that most people wouldn't know anything about this festival, but you happen to be speaking to somebody who played at that festival in 1986 with the Kent County Youth Orchestra.
You're kidding.
Yeah, we went on tour to Campos de Jordão and then did Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. In 1986, I was 16 years old, and the first place we went, so it's up quite high, isn't it?
Yes, in the mountain.
And there's a concert hall there. You can't believe that this place has this concert hall. And yeah, I remember it.
It's all glass, and you can see the forest from the glass.
You can, and wonderful. It's an amazing place. And we watched another orchestra play Beethoven 9, I think, and then we played Elgar 1 the next day. And yeah, absolutely amazing place. So I wanted to butt in and say, hey, I've been there and I know it, and yeah, it's amazing. So I can imagine spending 3 weeks there was, I mean, what a place to be, as you said, but also a place where everybody's keen to make music. It's all about music making, isn't it?
Yes, you basically live surrounded by music, and there are so many students from not just from South America, but it's the great thing is that they actually call for other international students, so that South American students can have a feeling of what is around, right? So I think that was the idea of inviting people from Juilliard Royal Academy, Amsterdam, these kind of conservatories. Also because for them it's quite tricky to travel sometimes, so they kind of found the perfect solution to open their ears, probably.
Yes, yeah, bring people in from outside rather than make travel from Brazil. It's interesting going back a few more points where you talked about, your route, everybody's route being different to get to the podium. There is no one prescribed route, and that over the course of this podcast has been the thing that every episode brings up, is that everybody's route. There may be a few who've gone through the English cathedral system, but after that, there's been a different path. They might have won a competition, or they might have become an assistant or something. And that is the whole point, really, of one of the hooks of the podcast, is that everybody's journey is different, and there is no one way of becoming a conductor. It can happen all overnight, almost in some people's cases, and then other people it takes years and years and years of study and masterclasses and all of that sort of stuff, and then suddenly, by word of mouth, it happens. And I think that's so important to get across, isn't it? That you should never give up, that there is no one route that you need to take.
It's true. Sometimes it's really disheartening, because the low key that is there's no path. It's just there's no path. So sometimes it's really hard, but at the same time, every day it could be a possibility. And I there is a moment where you have to try different things, and at the same time possibly, and until you really found the little spot that it allows you to go on. But I think because there is no path, it doesn't mean there is no direction. This is very, very important. I think you really have to know where you would like to go, which is not a a place. It's not that orchestra, that country. It's how. At least that's the key for me. It's how, whatever I will do, how do I want to do to enable me to really grow.
Yeah.
And that was the key. And then it's not really important the way that the journey that you will find. You will find it if you know where to look, what to look for.
So, I mean, going back to where we were before I butted in about Campos de Jordão, how did that, how important was that 3 week festival, and what was the next thing that happened after Campos de Jordão?
was revealing because I didn't even know, but at the end of the 3 weeks, there was a prize, a competition prize, and I won it without even knowing that there was a competition. And the
Possibly the
prize,
best way.
the best competition ever.
Yeah.
Yes, no pressure at all. So the prize was actually to be invited to be assistant of the São Paulo Symphony in the next season. So I need to say that the artistic director of the festival, the Campus do Jordão, is the same artistic director of the São Paulo Symphony. So, and during these weeks, we students were coached by different conductors, Giancarlo Guerrero, Marin Alsop, and that's how I met Marin Alsop, that at the time was music director of the São Paulo Symphony. So because the seasons in South America are opposite to us, so basically June, July, it's winter, and March is actually the new season. So I went there in March to be assistant of this huge, fabulous orchestra. I was not expecting such a fantastic orchestra. So the inauguration piece program was a new piece, percussion concerto and Mahler 5, and they did it in 2 rehearsals. And I was like, okay, that was really fantastic. So there I did my assistant job. So I had to cover all the rehearsals and all the programs. They had 1 program per week, so it was pretty intense. And then I had my little educational concerts, and all the assistant was meant to do. So now that's the interesting thing. So I was quite relaxed. I did my month. It went very well. I said, okay. So I was at the very last rehearsal, sitting in my chair in the auditorium, and I was enjoying the dress rehearsal. Okay. And then I heard a tap on my shoulder. It was the artistic director. I said, Valentina, we need to talk. That could be really good or really bad.
Yeah,
You never
yes.
know, right?
Yeah, we need to talk, isn't it? Yeah, that can go in it. That can be anything. Yeah.
So what happened is that the conductor of the following week had to cancel because of an injury. So, and I didn't know, of course, the program at all, because I was supposed to leave the day after. So, and because there were some problems also with the visa, and it's very complicated, and so he offered for me to jump in. And I asked for an hour and a half just to make the decision, look at the scores, and I knew that moment, it could go very well or very bad. Really, it was a very tough decision. And then I decided to accept, to slightly change the program, and it was a huge success. It was really, really, really wonderful. And from then on, they opened a fixed position. They invited me back in the same season, and they opened for the first time the stable position of assistant conductor, and they invited me for the next year just to be there. Yeah, so that's how I started. And then from assistant conductor, I moved to resident conductor, and then chief conductor of the symphonic chorus. And then because I was in São Paulo, I also had contact with the opera. So I became guest music director of the São Pedro Opera. So that's how all started, basically.
Well, amazing that this line from this music festival in the mountains through to São Paulo, and also meeting Marin. We'll come back to Marin and Tachy Concordia later. I'm assuming around this time, in the other half of the year, that you were back in Europe, and I read that you also assisted Sir John Eliot Gardiner, Semyon Bitchkov, Christian Thielemann, and had masterclasses with David Zinman and Daniele Gatti. Now, the first time I ever saw you was in that masterclass with Daniele Gatti, with the Concertgebouw, and I've spoken to Roderick Cox and to Jiří Roženia about being in those masterclasses, whether it was the year you did it or later. How did you find that? I asked them about it because, of course, they're live on the internet and we can all watch them. Yeah. It's not edited.
It's all live.
Yeah.
Not edited. Yeah.
How did you find that? Also with the Concertgebouw Orchestra. What an amazing experience it must have been.
Yes, I think these are. I much prefer these kind of experiences rather than competition itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say. But of course, it's a very stressful situation and also
Yeah.
very strange because, it's a master class, but it's live and with a huge orchestra and with a huge maestro. So it's a very delicate balance between the learning and, the you really want to learn at the same time you really want to show that you're good. So it's very tricky sometimes, but I have to say I loved it. It was a great experience. I was very happy to do it. I actually did it with a boot in my leg because I broke my ankle. So I was
Oh,
like,
right.
I was doing the stairs, the concert about stairs with the boot. That was quite impressive. That was my highlight.
So, I mean, if you take those five names, Elliot Gardner, Bitchkov, Tielemans, Inman, Gatti, what sort of things do you think you took from them? I mean, could it be technical ideas? Was anybody really get into your head about music, getting your, music and how to get that
Oh
across?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that's
Mike.
part of the difficulty about conducting is speaking to so many people, and they all have so many different ideas, and
Yeah.
filtering out the ones that you think can work for your brain and your musicality,
That's
isn't it?
true. That's true. But the very fascinating thing is that even they all were really different.
Mm.
They really had very different approaches from anything, from how to approach the score, how to approach the orchestra, how to work with the orchestra. But all of them were obsessed with one thing, and that was sound.
Mm.
That was the key thing for me,
Mm.
because actually, it's each one is a different personality, and so each one has a different concept, but sound is the thing, is
Mm.
the priority. I was, for example, I don't know, it blew up my mind when I, for the first time, I heard Gardiner doing sectionals, and he was doing section. For me, sectionals are strings or
Yes.
woodwinds or a brass percussion. So, if you're bold, but, his sectionals were like violas and alto in the chorus.
Mm.
I mean, that was, you know, so, and he was asking the violas to have to add more consonants, and he was asking the altos to have more bow in the length of the notes.
Mm.
That's mind, man, it just opens your mind. And I didn't know, I couldn't even write these things on my note. I was like, I don't know, with my mouth open, it was like like a fountain of knowledge. That's exactly why all the student conductors, but also not the conductor, all conductors should go to any other rehearsal, because it's just so precious.
Mm. Mm.
That was gold to me.
And what you're doing, I mean, the metaphor that's popped into my head, but you're basically, it's tools for your armory, or it's weapons for your armory. As you go through, you're going to encounter a time or in a rehearsal when you need your usual phrases of language don't work, or your beating gestures don't work, and you need to take something else from your mind that you've remembered that somebody else said and said, oh, well, I'll try that. And you need to find any way. So therefore, as you said, the more people you can watch rehearse, yeah, all right, you're frankly stealing some of their lines. But the point is, if it can help you in your career at some point, somewhere down the line, if you can have your mind opened like that by another conductor, isn't it amazing? I mean, I was lucky. I sat in thousands of rehearsals over 22 years as a violinist, so I had my mind opened on a regular basis, or shut, or sometimes on a regular basis. But the point is that that was my way. But if you're not playing in an orchestra, then you have to do what you do, which is go and put yourself in, assist people, watch rehearsals, have master classes, and you don't get that experience from competitions. That's why I totally agree with you there. I mean, in competitions, you're on your own, and nobody's feeding back to you afterwards, only if you've been knocked out and you're lucky enough to get feedback, I suppose. But yeah, isn't it important? Let's go on to the next mentor, which I mentioned earlier on, and both the current Tacky Concordia fellow, Chloe van Sertestedt, and Marin Alsop have appeared on the podcast. And so therefore the listener will know that it's a 2-year fellowship, and Marin basically says, you can come and go as you please, and you can do or ask as much as you like, but I'm here for you all the time. How did it work with you? I mean, what did that run at the same time as being in Sao Paulo with Marin?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes,
oh, right.
That was a very, I would say, unique situation, basically, because I was lucky enough to actually be there in the same place where she was music director, and so I could actually attend all the rehearsal that she was doing. But at the same time, I also took up the choir, the symphonic choir. So I also was, professionally responsible for the choir that was her choir in a way. So our relationship was at the same time, kind of I was her fellow, but at the same time, I was the chorus master.
Yes.
So it was really wonderful, really, really inspiring. And she has been a real inspiration for me, and from, on so many levels, on a professional level, on a conducting level, on a personal level, being a sometimes it's challenging to really see yourself from a different perspective. And all these fabulous conductors that I assisted or shadowed, I mean, still, having a mentor that is a woman, it does make a difference.
I'm sure it
does. Made me
Yeah.
think, for example, that each, the communication, the way we communicate, it has to be even more important rather than, it's just a different, you have to find, each conductor has to find his or her own way. But especially for women, I think it's a very delicate topic.
Well, I mentioned it to Marion in my chat with her on the podcast that, I saw a video of her talking to one of her fellows or somebody on the Techie Concordia program about use of language, and the saying that, that word that you use coming out of a man's mouth is okay, but coming out of yours, it could mean this, that, or the other. And I'm not sure that's what you mean. So we have to find another word just because you're a female, and therefore that, as you said, it's a delicate topic, but with her, you've got years of her experience of dealing with that, and then dealing with the fellows and the people she's mentored. So I would imagine it's invaluable, really.
It is.
And as rightly, more and more female conductors come into the profession and are getting the work and the titles that they deserve. But to have gone through that process with Marin must be something that you rely on a daily basis, I would imagine.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Would you say that your experience with the University Choir of Florence and then conducting the chorus or the choir in Sao Paulo has helped you in any way at all with opera? Because you've become the English National Opera Macaris Fellow for a couple of years, and now Garsington is in the diary. How do you think it's impacted on your opera conducting?
Well, I've been music director of this University Choir of Florence for 10 years. And of course, it's a university choir, so it has nothing in comparison with, I don't know, it's nothing comparable to a professional choir like it was São Paulo Symphony Chorus. But it gave me confidence that what was actually a music director job. And so more than the rehearsals and all the organizational things, it's just the vision. I had freedom to shape a vision for 10 years. And that was the vision of the University of Florence. It's quite an artistic city.
Yes.
And I had freedom to organize festivals and tour and tourneys. And so I discovered that I really loved that.
Yeah.
as much as moving my arms and shape a sound.
Yeah.
I love to take care of a group, being responsible of it, and shape a city's artistic group.
Yeah.
So that was helpful to me in that sense.
And that
About
will
the
help with
opera.
yeah, help with opera because there's so many people involved in an opera. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And opera has always been part of my life. Actually, I also took singing lessons as well. One of the many things I was doing here. But yes, I sang for as much as I played the piano. It's just it was has always been singing has always been an important part of my musical journey, I would say. So opera helped me in marrying the two areas that I loved. One was the symphonic area, and one was the voices. So putting them together and adding a dramaturgy and adding even more stuff, so like the scenes and the costumes and the wigs and the lights and there's so many layers. That's my dream. I thought, okay, this is really something that sums up all my interests and all my passions, with the voices being the leading aspects.
Well, I'm going to move on and say, well, therefore, if you have enjoyed putting people together in groups and representing a city, you must be excited that in summer last year, you were announced as the next music director of the Richmond Symphony Orchestra in Virginia, USA. How much are you looking forward to that? How many weeks a year are you there? And are you looking forward to the other thing that we've discussed on this podcast, which obviously with an orchestra in the US, it's not just about turning up, rehearsing, doing concerts and going away. You are a figurehead for the music in that city. And you've also got to speak to sponsors, to donors, to philanthropists, and go to receptions. How much are you looking forward to all of this thing coming up?
I love it. That's my dream. I mean, that's exactly. I mean, music director is someone who takes care from so many point of views. First, the artistic. You can really shape and help musicians to really find their excellence through a longer period of time. I mean, guest conducting is fun most of the times.
We'll come to guest conducting soon.
but it's so limited. It's so limited. You have a couple of days, 3 days, I mean a week if it's something bigger, and that's your off. And how much can you really make an impact to but being there more time and having the chance to actually create also collaborations, to create joining, I mean, moments where between organizations as well, that's really what I'm looking for. And I already started. So Richmond Symphony was one of the few orchestras in the States that actually they are performing. We are performing.
Good.
Yeah, we have never stopped. We started in August with an open air festival, and then from September we launched the season, and we are getting. I was there a couple of weeks ago. Now next in 10 days I will go there. I will go back there. So and we were supposed to host the Manual competition last year, and then we had to reschedule it, and then so this May we're hosting the Manual competition in a kind of a different way, but so we are in business, and I love it.
And your smile gave away your answer, that the fact that you are loving it, or you're looking forward to it. And when it may come to the point where you've had enough of going to after concert drinks receptions and being taken for dinner, or taking somebody out for dinner and asking them to donate to the orchestra. But I think I would absolutely love to be in that position, and to represent a city is the other thing as well. If that city, you take that city to your heart and you want to get the music making and the music enjoying of the city up and more in people's lives, I think it's such an important role to do. Maybe many years down the line you'll have had enough and think, oh, not another champagne.
I really don't think so.
but I'm throwing it out there as a possibility. But right now I think I could agree with you.
Also because there's a lot of Zoom meetings and Zoom galas. I really cannot wait for a dinners in person. So
Absolutely. Look, I did a rehearsal yesterday with 8 players from the CBSO, and they hadn't seen each other since before Christmas. So, dear listeners, this is now
no.
the 12th of February. I did a rehearsal yesterday, and at the end of the rehearsal, so there were 9 of us in the room. One person left fairly quickly, and all of the rest of us just sat there chatting. The rehearsal had finished. We'd finished early. Normally, as you can well imagine, a British
Will
musician by then would
disappear.
have, the room would have been emptied in a minute. No, 8 of the 9 of us sat there just chatting. And somebody said, "I don't want to go home. I'm enjoying talking to people, that I haven't seen for weeks." And that's what it's been like as everybody knows, all around the world. But to be able to get into a drinks reception or sit in a restaurant, and it would
Yeah,
be lovely.
we're so looking for
Mm,
connections in this moment, and
mm.
it can be playing together, it can be chatting. It's just moving when it happens.
Yes, it is moving. You mentioned guesting, and as somebody who's listened to a few episodes of the podcast, you'll maybe know that I call it the hamster wheel of guest conducting, where hamsters get on the wheel and go round and round and round in circles. But they love being on the wheel. The problem is getting off sometimes. I mean, as it happens, just before COVID came and the pandemic came, you had a very full diary of guest engagements. And of course, the lion's share of those would have gone, but they'll come back. How much were you enjoying it before lockdown, and how much are you looking forward to getting back out there and getting on the road? And do you find it stressful, that moment when you put that first beat down and have no idea what's going to come back?
um I would not call it stressful,
Mm,
but it is always it's like when you play chamber music for the first time with other people that you
yeah.
don't know. It's
Mm,
kind of like,
mm.
it's a mix of curiosity and like my hands starts like, but
Yes, sweaty palms. Yeah.
yeah, sweaty. But I think it's from the very first moment that you really then put down this beat, and the walk. That's the worst part to me. The
Yes.
walk, from the moment you open the door and you walk on the podium, that's the sweaty palms when it happens.
Mm.
And then from the moment you go down and start the first beat, I don't think no conductor thinks about other things. It's just and then
Oh,
disappears, and then you are there,
absolutely.
and everything disappears.
Mm.
And this is the first 5-10 minutes probably is the most delicate moment, is when you get to know each other's.
Yeah.
And what I really like to do is that, because it's such a delicate moment, it's not the moment where you really like conduct, you really I wouldn't say impose, but just be strong, because it's essential to find a communication. It's
Mm.
essential to receive as much to give in
Yes.
those first 10 minutes. So it's but it's all about feelings, and it's like driving on the ice. It's like, okay, you put an accelerator, but then you always be ready to adjust.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and
And
to use your analogy of driving on the ice, what you're saying is, at the beginning, you don't put your right foot to the floor straight away. That could be
correct.
one of the worst things you could ever do. Yeah, you're always feathering between accelerating, braking, judging. Just for those
But
first
one of the wonderful things, what I actually love in doing this guest conducting, is that it opens up to, you can really know so many different approaches, so many different
yeah,
orchestras, and each country is so different. It's
yeah,
just the way to play, the way to approach the playing, the concept of playing together, the concept of the piece, how to manage rehearsals. It's very, very different, and I think this is really it just priceless.
mm,
It's really fantastic. I love it, and I developed some really wonderful connections and also friendship in some ways with people across the continents, that it's really nice. I mean, it's lovely.
So starting in Richmond means that you will have many weeks planned to plan in each season, and you'll be learning new repertoire, I would imagine, which means learning new scores. And the question that conducting geeks and music lovers love me to ask, which is, how do you learn a new score? Do you have a system? Do you sit at the desk? Do you use a piano? And are you a scribbler of notes? You use red, blue, and black, or do you just keep your scores very clean? How do you do it?
I wish these people could actually see the video, not only the voice. I mean, I would love to show you some scores. It's just a Miro piece of art. It's just full of colors, and it's just I hardly can read it actually. But I usually the very first time, if I don't know a piece, I listen to it. And I listen many versions, but this has to be this is the very first step that I do, because I want to have a feeling from the listener point of view.
Yes.
So and then I don't listen anymore to the recordings. I sit on the piano and I just start trying to internalize it.
Yeah.
So getting familiar with it, see the harmonies, see how the instrumentation works. And I don't access the recordings until the very last stage. So I use the recordings at the very beginning and then at the very last, because then I'm curious to see all the interpretations and the choices that have been made about that. But I enjoy very much the process, and during this process I used to write a lot on the scores. That's why I have a lot of different scores, and also because the second time or third time that I use it, I mean, my marking, I can barely read what is written, so I need another score.
Did you find that writing things in made you learn it better? That's my argument for writing things in. Yes. It helps me internalize it. Yeah.
I do the same. For example, if I had to study, I don't know, a book or something, I always underline, or that's the way I internalize the information, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think for me it would be, it is invaluable that I make those markings, but there has come a point when the scores are so full of rubbish that I then buy a new one, normally bigger, because I go from from a very old score to a now full-size conductor score, and I take what I want, so anecdotes or misprints or bowings that I've found that I really liked, and I'll put that in the new score. But then I'll get rid of all of the other guff that I now no longer need, because the score's in my head better. But I mean, some of those, I've kept some of those original scores because I find them fascinating to look back at them and think, well, that's how I would have done it then, but now something else.
And actually, I appreciate so much that actually conductors on the past had the same, kind of not the same, but a similar approach to writing. But then, you can access through internet archives of previous conductors. I mean, and these scores are just, I don't know, treasures. They're, I mean, when you really can decipherate what is written, then it's just, opening like a door on, a complete different universe. It's really, really, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for any podcast listeners who are interested in this, you can go to the New York Philharmonic website and you can go to their library and you can find any score, and you can see what Bernstein wrote in his scores.
Yeah, I mean, that Bernstein archive is just phenomenal. It's really fantastic. Yeah.
And
all free.
And all free, exactly. And you can also get hold to see some of Mengelberg's scores. Especially for the Mahler performances, where he was possibly the first person after Mahler with a lot of these Mahler symphonies who ever conducted them, and would have had Mahler's thoughts and ideas and traditions and input into them. So they're also equally fascinating.
When I was at the Academy, there was an archive about Barbirole's scores. So that was also really, I mean, I love to see these markings, and most of the times, yes, there are some bowings that really are key bowings, I would say, but also some general notes that it's really so precious.
Well, I mean, and to finish off, seeing other people's scores, I have on occasion, because I don't have a copy of my own, had to use some of the scores in the CBSO's library. And very rarely on occasion, I've had the chance to use a score that Simon Rattle used a lot. And I can tell you now that there's virtually nothing in there There might be the odd word and maybe the odd dynamic, but there is nothing else. It's completely blank. So whenever I saw them, I was like, oh, it's
Well, I
Rackham's
think
writing.
it's good for the wallet, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, because these things aren't cheap. But yeah, it's a fascinating subject, and one I ask every conductor, and the answers are all subtly different. How they approach it, and again, it's another thing that keeps the podcast interesting, I hope. If you are fascinated by how a score is marked up, I've written an article on the subject, showing my own method and explaining how I go about the process of marking and learning a score. You can see this article, as well as other articles, bonus mini-episodes, interviews and videos, by subscribing from just £5 a month to my Patreon page. If you decide to pay annually, you can even get a 10% discount over the year, and join the discussion all about conductors and conducting at a discounted rate. The details are in the show notes attached to this episode, and it would be great to have more of you subscribing to this ever-growing supporters club. Now then, back to my chat with Valentina Peleggi and the all-important 10 questions. Valentina, it is 10 questions time, and I shall start at the beginning. Where else? What sound or noise do you love, and what sound or noise do you hate?
The sound of the train. I know you would say that I hate it, but it's not true. It actually is very comforting to me because I was born my first apartment was really next to the train, so every time I hear the sound of the train, it calms me, and so it's a very, I don't know, strange probably, but I love it.
It's a good one. And the sound you hate if it isn't a train?
The train, because most of the time it's very annoying.
So it's a love-hate relationship with the train. Well, that's fine.
Yeah, so true.
Brilliant. The next one, if you had 24 hours free, what would you spend it doing?
3 things: making pizza, sharing pizza, and eating pizza.
Brilliant answer. One of my favorite things ever is pizza,
I know.
Especially homemade pizza. My wife makes beautiful homemade pizza.
That's the only pizza that, that's the only pizza, otherwise it's not pizza. It's just,
She keeps telling me, she'd love a pizza oven in the garden, and I'd nod and go, yeah, so would I. I think she's trying to get me to build one, but that's never going to happen. But yeah, it would be lovely to have a pizza oven in the garden. And how are you with, it's my chance to ask an Italian person this question. I don't think I've ever done it before. How are you with some of these weird and wonderful toppings that people put on, like pineapple and tuna?
I think they should be banned. I think people should be fined for eating pineapple on pizza or something like that.
Oh, brilliant. I love that answer. Mainly because I totally agree with you, but I love that answer. Thank you. Who would be a favourite conductor of yesteryear?
Abbado, of course, Kleiber,
yes.
and Piero Bellugi.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any reasons why? I mean, Abbado and Kleiber, I suppose, everybody can understand why. But any reasons?
I think the thing that connects the 3 of them is the approach and the elegance in the making music.
Yes.
I think this is very, very essential to me. It's one of the, must elegance, yes, in the phrasing, in the balance,
Yeah. Well, elegant they definitely were. So I wonder if any of your favorite current conductors are also equally elegant.
They are.
Go on.
Each one is different.
Yes.
So, of course, in top of my list, just for personal reasons, there is Zubin Mehta.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially Zubin Mehta in the 90s. And then I would say Ivan Fischer, of course, Marin Alsop, Bernard Haitink, and Gardiner.
Well,
very different.
It's funny. I'm not sure Zubin's been chosen before as a favorite current conductor. But you're right. His beat is so elegant and so clear, and so it's definitely one I've looked at and thought, I could I would have happily have played for you. And High Tink. I never played for High Tink either, and wished I had. Brilliant list. Brilliant list.
Brilliant conductors.
What is the hardest work you have ever conducted?
The hardest and the fun. What is it? Funnest? Or fun? The most fun.
Yes.
Probably. I'm sorry. I'm really bad in English. I'll get better.
Better than
it's a piece. Next one is in Italian. Okay, good. So I would say it's a piece by Roxana Panufnik, and its title is Across the Line of Dreams. It's a piece for 2 orchestras, 2 choirs, and 2 conductors. Okay, this is really cool because we premiered and we did this piece with Maren Alsop, of course. We did it in Baltimore and in Sao Paulo. And it's really, it's in 3 movements. The first 2 movements, we kind of, it's the same pulse. Yeah. So it's fine. And then, of course, the 3rd movement happens, and it's, there is some reference between the two groups, but one is conducting in 5/4, the other is in 12/8. It's just, it's really challenging, especially because there is the chorus.
Yes.
And it responds a bit later, just because they are far, and just the nature of it. So it was a very challenging piece. It was the only piece that I conducted with another conductor. It's really fun, but it's terrifying sometimes.
Oh, I agree. I've done that once. We did a piece in Birmingham, which had been premiered in Berlin. And Ed Gardner was the main conductor, and I was the second conductor. And it's a piece by Jonathan Harvey called Weltethos, which again was for chorus, children's chorus, 1 orchestra. But it was written in the part which conductor to follow. And as second conductor, I didn't have an awful lot to do, but when I did, it was often at completely a different tempo, or Ed would pass something over to me, and then I have to take it up in a different way, and whatever else. And it felt.
I know we can always blame the other conductor, right?
It felt a lot like the soldiers said that being in war was like, sort of 95% boredom followed by 5% terror, and it was exactly like that. I was sitting there doing very little, and then all of a sudden you're having to subdivide Ed's beat into 7 to try and work out the tempo that mathematical relationship, and it was fun, but very frightening.
Yeah, it was difficult, but I have to say, brilliant piece. Roxana is a fabulous composer, so it was at the same time, a challenge, but a great joy. And when all the pieces are together, finally gets together, it's really fun. It's an apotheose, I would say. Yeah.
I don't know what percentage of the piece were you conducting in it for?
It was it's the same amount.
Oh, so you both. Oh, right.
Yeah. We conduct at the same time, basically.
Right. Okay.
Almost all the piece.
Oh, wow. Right. Okay. Oh, well, that's where it differed from me, because I suppose I probably only conducted about 10% of the piece. Most of the rest of the time I was sitting there doing very little.
No, that's really. A normal, like, chorus and orchestra split right in half.
Oh, and wow.
It's.
Well, the funny story about me only doing 10% was that the first time we put the orchestra together with the chorus and 2 conductors was in the CBSO Centre, and it was the night that England were playing a football match in a world tournament. I can't remember if it was a World Cup or the European Championships. And so I had my stand. It was a massive, great big score, and I had my stand sort of angled with my phone on silent, but I had the football on the phone. And the principal cello kept whispering to me, "What's the score? What's the score?" Eventually, Ed must have heard that I was watching the football, because I had nothing to do for the next 45 minutes. I thought, well, I'll put the football on and I'll keep my ears open in the rehearsal. And Ed turned around and said, "You're watching the football, Mike?" And I said, "Yeah, I am. Sorry, Ed." And he said, Good. Keep it on and tell me if we score any goals. Right, next, figure B,
Well, you're lucky, because score in English can be both, so you could say, you could have said, "I'm looking at the score," and everything was actually right. That's the advantage of, speaking English.
See, your English is better than me. I didn't think of that. Oh. Very good. When traveling abroad to conduct, what item could you not leave home without?
My watch, earplugs, especially for the noise or
Yeah.
canceling noise. And of course, in these days, a pack of masks,
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
at least.
Now, are you a springs, cogs, wheels type watch, or are you an Apple Watch which is hooked up to your phone and everything else?
No, I don't go with digital watches. I just, all style watches.
Good.
That's
I'm
the
with
way to
you.
go.
Yeah, cogs, wheels, and springs are the way forward, as they've been for hundreds of years. Brilliant. Now, number 8. Well, we're rattling through them. What is the one thing you would change about being a conductor?
It's a big question. How much
Mm.
time do we have?
As long as you like.
No, well, apart from sexism,
Yes.
no, I would say the competition point of view,
Mm.
the competition aspect. I think it's just consuming and devastating. It's just bad. I think each one of us, that could be actually not only for conducting, but probably in any field, but
Yeah.
each one of us is in competition most of the time, always, but with ourselves, not with the others. That's really and sometimes industry pushes to the competition point, aspects, and I think it's just bad. It
Mm.
doesn't add anything. But there is also something that I would like to see more, and it's a connection between the school and the profession.
Mm.
Especially because there is no, actually, as we were mentioning, a path for real. Then it's very important that when you're in the school, you actually receive some basic informations that then it's essential in the job, in the profession, that nobody actually teaches you, nobody tells.
Mm.
And that's from the very first huge issue, which is sound, because you're taught how to move your hands and how to actually drive, but you have no clue where to drive, what
Mm.
is the destination that you're going. So this is probably the first and most important thing. But at the same time, also something about um, practical things, like what is actually, what is the job in itself, what a conductor has to take care of, and what is the difference in being an assistant conductor and a main conductor, a chief conductor, a music director. Be aware of the theater and all the departments, how it works in opera house, how it works at theater, and taxes, for example, something really banal. It's a
Mm.
huge thing,
Yeah.
especially if you travel and there are all these international different rules, and it's a huge thing. So it's just pick one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, just in my own sphere of what I was taught when I was a student, but also now in being involved in places like the Conservatoire in Birmingham, and I go occasionally to Conservatoire in Glasgow. That you know, passing these things on, I think, is so important. When I speak to conducting students, I have a little thing at the Conservatoire in Birmingham where I set them a challenge to do with rehearsal orders and to do with programming and artistic planning of things
Yeah,
that aren't taught in conducting lessons. They teach you,
yeah,
as you said, what to do with your left hand, your right wrist, what to do with the beat. They might mention programming, but things like rehearsal orders, that's what you can actually lose work because your rehearsal orders are so bad. Um,
so true.
and
Yeah,
and whilst I have no intention of teaching anybody about VAT and tax and all of that sort of stuff, but I do think there should be a class at every conservatoire where they are taught things like that. I know that when, for instance, in the conducting world, when you got the chance to get somebody, so for instance, very early on, I interviewed Alpesh Chauhan, who has gone on to have a very successful career. But he was spotted when he barely started conducting and came through the CBSO Youth Orchestra, studied in Manchester at the Royal Northern College. But the CBSO got him in as an intern. Basically, his job was to sit there and watch rehearsals and
yeah,
learn that way, and then keep having lessons, and then gradually, drip by drip by drip, give him some more work. He then became assistant for 2 years and went through that path. And so by getting hold of somebody early with lots of talent, then you could give them a chance. They could find out all of the things you've just talked about, which aren't taught elsewhere. And that, I think it would be so nice to be able to do that, not just for conductors, but
Yeah,
also
it's
for,
true.
for everybody else. And as for the competitive element, yeah, yeah, everybody sees it that we're all fighting each other, down a dark alleyway over who's going to be the next music director of this or the next principal guest of that. And most of the time, we're just too busy worrying about ourselves than worried about the opposition in inverted commas, or people that we're worried about they getting more work than we are. It's just you just want to happily create your own world and your own little path of enjoying music making. Other people write all this stuff about competitions, and I want to add one more thing. Sorry, I'm getting on my high horse, but more often than not, it is the classical music media that when somebody wins a competition, they seem to, put their push to the very top of the tree as being the next whoever, Carlos Gleiber, Simon Rattle, whatever else. And they're often in their young, in their mid-20s, and comparatively compared to others, they know nothing. Yes, they might be exciting, but actually they know very little, and they've been put there because they've won a competition. But that's when, all right, you've won the competition, but that's when you've got to start learning. That's when, all of these things you've just mentioned, they need to start doing. Do you agree?
Yeah.
You do. Good. That's fine. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Poet, painter. I could be a luthier, but I could be also, how do you say when you drive a motorbike and you do the races?
Yeah, what is it? Yeah, because you can. A car driver is a Formula One driver. I suppose it's your motorcycle Grand Prix driver. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, let's
that's a
call it
lot of
that.
words.
It is,
Yeah.
but let's call it that.
Yeah, I love motorbikes. I have a small green Kawasaki that I adore. So yeah, I have this passion.
So are we to sit here and imagine you donning your leathers after this interview and going for a quick zoom around the back
And
streets of
going
Florence?
nowhere because there's lockdown, but in my dreams,
Yeah.
especially in the countryside, that's fantastic. That's where I love it. I don't really enjoy the speed much, but I really enjoy to do the, when the, let me say, the curves, when you did all the turns. Oh my God, I
Yes.
love the turns, the feeling of being, in the air. I love it.
So in theory, on your motorbike out into the country, find somewhere nice, easel, canvas and paint out. And
eat pizza. Wait a second, you lost. Yeah, that's it.
Well, we're coming to number 10 now, and you've mentioned pizza twice. So if pizza isn't the answer of number 10, I'd be very upset. Well, I'm intrigued now. Number 10 is, of course, if the world were to end tonight, what would be your choice of final meal and drink?
Did I mention pizza? Did I?
I think you
I
may have
did.
done.
No, so, okay. So it doesn't count pizza. We already mentioned pizza
Yeah.
in the 24 hours.
Yeah.
But I don't think that, it's, I need more time. I need more time. I need to have parmigiano di melanzane, any kind of pasta. You can really choose any.
Yeah.
Tornadoes alla Rossini, risotto perfumed with truffles, prosciutto and watermelon, salad for the countryside, gelato, tiramisu, cafe, of course, espresso.
Yes.
You mean espresso? It does, other kind of a cafe. It's not coffee. It's
They
just
don't count.
a beverage. Right. But it's just, I need more time. We have so many wonderful, delicious food that, food is a philosophy. It's just enjoying life. So, yeah.
Well, it's the one thing I missed, and I know my family missed about last summer, and will miss about this summer because we won't be going to Italy. And we go there on our holidays and love Italian food. And, all of what you've just mentioned has me salivating. You didn't even mention any of the Italian wines, which I'm sure would have accompanied.
I know that's a big part, but there was, that would be question number 11.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, what an incredible way to go out on all of that incredible Italian food. Valentina, it's been an absolute joy. I've had real fun chatting to you, getting to know you and meeting you. And I hope very soon in the future, when we're out of our lockdowns, we can get together over a slice of pizza or even an espresso, because I'm an espresso drinker, and say hi to each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
A Mic on the Podium was devised and produced by Michael Seal, with music by Ben Dawson. Next time, I chat with a Scottish conductor who has guest conducted all over the world and had title positions in both the Netherlands and the UK. He is better known as being one of the most successful composers writing today, with one of his works having had over 500 performances over the last 20 years. But until then, bye-bye.